Good evening, my Circuitous Ceratosaurus. I finally figured out the biggest mystery in Zenless. Now, I don't expect you to believe me at first, but I implore you, hear me out. It won't seem so bonkers when I show you the evidence. Belle and Wise are both clones of Sunbringer and Joyous, but at the same time, they become Sunbringer and Joyous in the time loop story. This is the tough to swallow part. They must sacrifice themselves to become Fairy and Jinny. Don't click off, I know you think this is a little deranged. But what if I told you the devs have been showing us this since the very beginning? Now, before I can begin, I need to explain how I got here. The community seems to know about my Rain has ghost theory, though it feels like no one knows what my real theory is. I had just started this YouTube channel and no one gave me credit when they were discussing this theory. I actually said Belle is connected to Fairy, Rain gets ghost between chapter 1 ending and chapter 3 starting, Wise will get Jinny after, but we will probably get the reveal with Wise and Jinny before the reveal with Rain and Ghost. Finally, Nicole gets Yukai after the other three are introduced into the main story. I will be updating this theory and my time loop predictions. In my video about the time loop and the game's story being a simulation taking place on tapes, I talk about how it is being watched on Belle and Wise's CRT TV, and I end the video by saying, we do not know if Belle and Wise are clones of Sunbringer and Joyous, or if they become them in the time loop of the story. I was shocked when I realized both are true. While I was digging for lore, I found mountains of foreshadowing that Belle becomes Fairy. My curiosity got the best of me, and I found more that shows Wise becomes Jinny. We know the AI are in the Internet Deep database and asleep at the time of the lore teaser. But we must analyze that video once again with this new context. I noticed some things that are easily overlooked and I can't keep it to myself. Starting with the statements about files. The two narrators have read-only access to the surface files. They have unfettered access to the deep database files. The semantics implies they are editing the file for New Eridu's founding report, specifically the section about the key players in the suppression of the catastrophe. If you play Honkai Star Rail, this should feel too familiar. The history fictionologist changed some of the Astral Express database files, and we get a hidden message when we discover where the changes are and compare it to the original. In the lore teaser, we can do the same, and this is where their commentary becomes doublespeak. If we have this vital information, the entire video has new meaning. Like the key players. The keys, the divine keys, be so for real, they call them keys in the game. It's the AI. Now, I believe the narrators are Sunbringer and Joyous. I've been going on about this for about 10 months now. We have to recap some of the points, especially with this new lens. The word choice in particular is a giveaway. It's a clear reference to their titles and roles. She calls him a killjoy and corrects the record about the Bang Boo being Sunbringer's real achievement. No other entries are corrected, and she says, I remember her as misdirection, but it is still alluding to having multiple roles with different titles. When they are discussing the Swordmaster, she says, I wonder how her predecessors are doing, as if they were friends with her already. And it's no coincidence that Belle and Wise have the same personalities as both the narrators and Sunbringer and Joyous. Even their appearances are connected. Joyous has one red eye and Sunbringer has one blue eye. Be so for real right now, the colors and eye thing are pretty important to the story. This can't be a coincidence. I also think that it's more symbolic, but the story goes there sometimes, so it could be a very literal thing. Like when she says, search complete, talking about Fairy's role, but also an important note, that is also what she is currently working on. it is her role as well. Upon further inspection, every one of their actions becomes suspicious. The narrators are rewinding both of the index tapes shown on screen. The label is also put on upside down. Really, everything that the narrators do in this context, it makes it clear that it is Belle and Wise. The first scene of this lore teaser says any further unauthorized attempts at accessing this database will trigger the full force of the Internet defense system. Then we see new Eridu in its earliest stages of development. A hollow erupts from random play and devours 6th Street. Then, this is eerily similar to the opening cutscene of ZZZ. We see Belle is resting on the couch, but Wise is working. He's carrying a stack of tapes, and these are the same ones in the video archive. The news is talking about a hollow on 14th Street. There are a ton of references to the staff room in this lore teaser video, but the most obvious one is the red pill and blue pills in the staff room. This is a reference to the Matrix, and we can confirm that with the Trailblazer AI modeled after Joyous offering you the red pill or the blue pill and having the Easter egg. But this is also the color scheme used to describe what happened between the different original Void Hunters. Arky is special, and he is shown as originally blue, and then he becomes purple. This also explains how the TV beyond the crystal door has a giant crystal in it and why it looks like Belle and Wise's TV. The same one we see on the login screen is the one that becomes corrupted. That was the Internet's defense system. I wish I realized it sooner. That's why all this is happening. We can go a step further. The random play sign makes an Ouroboros. The ethereal cores are splitting in two in the background, like this scene in the preview for Nihility on the TV loading screen. I'm going to talk about what it means for Belle and Wise separately when I talk about the AI and their counterparts. When the countdown ends, we see a hollow falling, but not really falling, from the sky and collapsing into another hollow. This is exactly what we see in the prologue cutscene when Phaethon gets Fairy. Belle and Wise are standing outside Hollow Zero at Scott Outpost. Hollow Zero is expanding, and there is another hollow in the sky collapsing into Hollow Zero. And finally, my favorite one, the concrete lore, the Bang Boo and Seed talk about Sunbringer as if she is still alive. The AI are still mysterious. We see Fairy from the lore teaser is the same Fairy in the game. The narrators also say things are going to get interesting now that a proxy has Fairy. This also confirms multiple endings and the timeline being a loop that they must go back and change. This is a routine thing for the narrators. We also know the AI can be modeled after a person so well they are essentially the same, a type of archiving and a type of preservation. Now we know the database was altered by the narrators placing the AI into its past. But where did the AI come from? We have enough clues that we can figure it out. The game starts with Fairy, so it is the most appropriate place for us to start. In Business, Strangeness, Justice, which is the prologue of Zenless Zone Zero's story, Phaethon gets Fairy, and we can see on the cover that Belle clearly has her one eye closed. It's her left eye, which also aligns with Sunbringer's yellow eye. We're going to talk about how that happens a little bit later, but for now, we can move on to the second point. In random play, the PC under the desk is on and blinking. The other one is plugged in, but not on. Belle has the same smiley face on her door and in her games console, which matches the face that Fairy is assigned to in the graffiti and doodle symbolism. It's the Be Kind rewind face, the ones that would be placed on the VHS tapes when you would rent them out. Next, in the prologue cutscene, when Fairy is activated, Belle says Fairy. A little bit of foreshadowing for how Belle becomes Fairy is on the sticky note with the X's on its eyes and its tongue sticking out. We only see it on a blue sticky note for a reason. In the Nihility movie preview and poster, we see a corrupted woman with wings but no arms. This mirrors how we see Fairy without arms in the Devour ending, which implies the bad ending, and we see it happen. The hollow is expanding on 6th Street. Now, I understand that everything with Belle and Fairy is more tangible than the other AI. We have interacted with Jinny before, but now I need to show you. With the exact same style of foreshadowing, we can confirm that Wise will get Jinny and will become Jinny at some point. While it's fresh in our minds, we're gonna start with the Nihility preview. We can see something falling from the sky. It cuts to a red circle for a frame, and then it shows Jinny waking up. The most obvious one, though, is that his hero is Joyous. The AI in the HIA is inspired by Joyous, and he loves the VR training as well. That leads into the original clue. This red smiley face with the pointy teeth. Now, I'm pretty sure that we saw the Virtual Revenge comic scene with this one character who is making the exact same face, because that could be the person who put Jinny into the HIA VR system. We know that it's modeled after Joyous. We know that Wise becomes Joyous. It's all making sense. They were never part of the Spiral Flutists to begin with, but caring about that meant that we were able to figure out what happened with the actual Spiral Flutists. Now, who is this? Okay, no clue. I don't think he made Jinny. I think he just found him and put him into the HIA VR for the giggles. In the prologue cutscene, when Phaethon gets Fairy, we see an actual picture of Jinny and Fairy standing behind Belle and Wise. But Wise also says Jinny's name in that cutscene. Next, in Soldier 11's agent story, we learn that she will only talk about Phaethon with a code name, including the color red or a synonym for it. I don't think this is a coincidence. The same way, I don't think his chair color is a coincidence. The button on the HDD to enter the sensory sync and turn on all of its vital functions is a bright red button. If you keep looking around random play, you will keep finding these red circles. Even the Wi-Fi router power on symbol is a red circle. If you go into Wise's room, you will see the game console is yellow and it has a red circle on it. And the one piece of visual foreshadowing for us to truly understand where we will find Jinny. This sticky note with a tower and a red dot at the top. No matter where it is, this is what it looks like. If it's on a pipe, on a locker, or on a corkboard, it will have that red dot at the top of the tower. Moving on, I have not found any evidence that Belle and Wise are going to get Ghost or Youkai. Instead, I see that Rain's counterpart is definitely Ghost. When we first meet her, she says hacking is not like it is in the movies. But then in chapter 3, that is something straight out of a thriller, action, comedy flick, right? There's the ghost in the ballet Twin Towers, and then she does her phantom hunt. We also know that Rain is most likely white noise. Sarah says the real deal is on it this time in chapter 5 in reference to working with white noise again, who was the hacker that stole Phaethon's account. The foreshadowing just keeps piling on. In Anby's trailer, Here's What You Missed, we learned that Rain was the one to give Nicole the commission for the strongbox that contained Fairy. She is also most likely White Noise, the hacker who stole the Phaethon account in the prologue. In Chapter 5, Sarah says the real deal is on it this time in reference to working with White Noise again. The last piece of foreshadowing for Rain becoming and getting Ghost, the parking lot door at Random Play. The flare text is doublespeak. It says the key was left in a box and forgotten by Phaethon. If we add the context from Rain's statements in Astronomical Moment, this has to be about one of the AI being a physical key. We will probably have to wait until Rain shows up, but my suspicion is that Ghost is being held on a physical key, the one that unlocks the parking lot door. We already know that Fairy was trapped inside the strongbox. Maybe that's what Rain did after. Not being able to retrieve the strongbox containing Fairy, she probably went after another one. Finally, we can talk about Nicole becoming and getting Yukai. We know that her powers are connected to ether, but it doesn't stop there. Her name in the files is Nostradamus, and this is her original design. The 78th prophecy from Nostradamus is an important one to Zenless Zone Zero. An old head shall beget an idiot, who shall degenerate in learning and in arms. The head of France shall be feared by his sister, and the fields divided, granted to the people's army. There's no way. Come on, I already did the video on Fortune Favors the Fool and the deep meaning behind it. Nicole's entire purpose is to be the first one. Youkai is the first one to be used in the lore teaser. Go, Youkai, start corrupting the database. Now, are we supposed to ignore the connections between Nicole being inherently connected to the ether element, having a black hole come out of her suitcase, and Yukai's entire job being corrupting? Be so for real right now. In Anby's Here's What You Missed trailer, we see that Nicole is planning something. Her office has the red strings with the different things posted up on a board, but we also see her with the purple cat graffiti right behind her. I think it's a little on the nose. We also see it with the symbolism for her necklace. She wears it lower than the cutout on her shirt, which has that net pattern. When we look at the necklace a little bit closer, we can see it's made of black crystal, and it has a mysterious origin. We are meant to think about it. Even one of the promo videos is bringing a ton of attention to it. Now, I believe Youkai is currently on or in her necklace, not activated, still dormant, but off of the Internet Deep database and with their counterpart. I cannot believe it took me so long to realize this, but as it goes, we can move on to Belle and Y's being Sunbringer and Joyous, because that does not bruise my ego the way that slipping under the radar for so long did. Now, everything about the HDD is suspicious, but we do know how it was created. Archie worked in partnership with Marcel Group, but the code author is BW. I think this is very obvious that it means Belle and Y's, but this is only a clue. We must dig deeper. Their appearance is the biggest giveaway. Belle's eyebrows are gray, even though her hair is blue. She has the same eye shape and hair shape as Sunbringer. Y's is not as easy to tell because Joyous has red eyes, but the actual shape is the exact same. The same goes for their hair. We also know that they share a literary inspiration, specifically Perseus' Samunda. This is by Cervantes, and it was his last novel before he passed away. We know this because of how prominently featured Don Quixote is. I already did a deep dive on it, so please check out those 2 videos if you haven't already. I also have to assume that Wise will have an eye color change when he falls from the tower. We don't know when or what tower, but we know it must happen because the use of tarot cards, tower in reverse, the inspiration, Persilis falls from a very high place how many times? Like, that's how they open up the story. Then we also see Belle float while Wise is falling in several arts, implying that she may already be in the afterlife, but a more accurate and appropriate way of talking about how they even got into the story is that they were placed there. I hope I have successfully proven that I'm not going crazy, the AI do have counterparts, and there is a time loop. We can start mapping it. Now, in my video about the timeline being a loop, I talk about how the story has already happened, it is currently on the tapes in the staff room, and the real narrators are viewing it on a TV. Now we know that that is Belle and Wise's TV from the staff room, and it is the only way to keep continuity and maintain that Belle and Wise are still the main characters even outside the videotape simulation world. These scanners in the staff room are used to digitize old film. Both units are currently loaded with a film reel and a receiver reel with the film visible. Now, it takes hours for these machines to digitize film, but it is currently connected to the HDD. This means that everything is immediately loaded up into their computer. We must question Belle and Wise's real role in New Eridu. Why are they so mysterious? They don't even have last names, nor a clear origin. We know they must go back in time, but that's about it. It will always happen, they're stuck in a time loop. Their paradox revolves around them being clones of themselves. This is a classic hoyo trope turned on its head, and it subverts a few expectations. The first being, they are the originals and the clones. Hoyo usually distinguishes the original from the clones so that they can follow the far more compelling story of the clone. It also proposes a bonkers paradox. Who put them there to begin with? If this is a simulation and the story has already happened, why not edit the film? But who is doing that? Now, we see that the HDD is currently digitizing multiple types of film. I believe the voice of the HDD, the AI inside of it, will become Archie. I still think Archie is the current Hive Lord until proven otherwise, especially with his name and real title being connected to a huge concept, the Archive Lord, the video archive. So we know Archie is also outside the timeline because he has been in Hollow Zero for an entire era, but presumed alive. The ethereal core is not a good sign for him, but Belle and Wise also have an ether core in the form of an actual hollow inside of them. We know that Archie went into Hollow Zero to seek the truth, and we are told many times, Belle and Wise must get the sword named the Truth. Sometimes it is called the Holy Sword, but we know its real name, and its true purpose is to turn back time. See what I'm saying? The foreshadowing is pretty insane. Belle and Wise will also have a hollow inside them, and we know the Faith in You chose has a named hollow. It says hollow XX1744XX39. I believe Archie is going to be revealed to be the one to become the HDD, because now we know both Faithins and the HDD and Professor Archie and Sunbringer and Joyce, all of them, every single thing we talk about in this video is some form of a Jinn particle or the demon particle. They are consistently stuck in a time loop. They can only exist in the loop. The last time I talked about this, we could only confirm it for Archie. Now we know for certain. Belle and Wise are also in that situation. To better explain this time loop and how it works, we need to break down the paradox it forces upon the story. We don't know the real start to all this madness, so we must make some assumptions. But they are all easy to believe, and the truth does not affect it very much. We know Belle and Wise started at Helios Academy as children. Carolarna took care of them, but also subjected them to heinous science experiments for the greater good of humanity. We do not know their last names, so it is safe to assume they were never given any, but they were given eye implants and a hollow that was implanted into them while at Helios. They lived there and were given moments of freedom, but for the most part, they were still trapped. Carolarna went into Hollow Zero to bring the Exaltists to the Crystal Door. Something happened, and this caused the fall of the old capital. Now, we do not know what happened between those two events, but we must assume it was something pretty bad. Carolarna is taken away by the Hand. Belle and Wise escape Helios and survive the fall of the old capital. They recover the HDD and EOS, then move to 6th Street when things start settling, about 5 or 6 years after the fall of the old capital. Belle and Wise get Fairy, then they are told about the prophecy with the sword named the Truth. At some point, they will fulfill the prophecy as foreshadowed by their phones having the word prophet on them. They will gain the ability to turn back time once they get that sword. Once they decide to go back in time, how are they not bringing the HDD and EOS with them? They bring those two things everywhere. I don't make the rules, they love to take it with them. We know that the HDD was made with Archie and Marcel Group. At the time, Sunbringer was the CEO. She also invented Bing Boo at that time. It's more and more believable that the HDD and EOS are trapped in the time loop as well. Remember, Belle and Wise are business owners, and this is a hilarious thing for them to have in common. I hope we get a better management event for the Swabian Temple, like the Swabian Temple one. If this is how they go about making Marcel Group, like, integrated into the game, beyond the Bing Boo. So we know they created the HDD and the Bing Boo by bringing them to the past. How can the authors of the HDD code be Belle and Wise if they're using the 4th prototype of it? Was there ever an original? Could it ever be destroyed? No and no, okay? It is stuck in the time loop, and the only way to break the time loop is to change something. I believe their plan was to change themselves. This is the speculation that we must grapple with until we get more lore. If Belle becomes Sunbringer and Fairy, how are they all existing at the same time? This is the wacky part. I think Fairy and the other AI are going to be the consciousness or personality OS versions of their counterparts. Technology experiences time in a different way, and Sunbringer is the only one who has developed this type of AI throughout the entire story. Similar to one of the Marcel Group subsidiaries, Asterism Industries, making the Bellabog prototype and personality OS. It matches the exact same type that Marcel Group makes for the Bing Boo, and the one for Fairy and Friends. So, with Bing Boo being invented to navigate outside of the hollows, Fairy and Friends being close to the Rosetta data, it's all coming together that it was Belle and Wise. We know the story is taking place on tapes, and this is how these time loops and crazy sci-fi stories are able to happen. So I will use the tapes and the VCR to explain the absolute nonsense that is this time loop. This is what the timeline looks like right now. 2 reels of film, the supply reel and the take-up reel. I'm going to use Belle, Fairy, and Sunbringer to explain, but it works similarly for all the AI and their counterparts. We also know what to look for when we have this analysis ready to go. Conveniently, Fairy looks like an eye, but also the drum of a VCR. This is a crucial piece in reading and writing onto the magnetic tape of the VHS. This is the process that causes generational distortion, like I talked about in the timeline video. She has the 4 heads, which are specific sensors that read and write the information. Fairy is the one modifying the tapes in the current story. It is her power inherently because the story is being told on the VHS tapes. This process is called a helical scan, and it happens in a diagonal shape and direction, similar to how the hollows are unraveled in the HDD into a helical shape. The audio is embedded into the same space as the video data, but because it has 2 specific heads to read the audio, it can be deeper in the film and use a different type of magnet, different directions. I don't even know how else to explain this. It's just in there deeper. What does that even mean? Well, we know that it does have implications for the story. This is important for the overarching goal to digitize the film and store it in the HDD, but also how sound can affect things in the game. In Astronomical Moment, we learn the ancient mages used chanting to make their magic work. This is how the agents make their abilities work in the current new Eridu. They may have weapons, but the W engines are what amplifies their abilities and allows them to traverse the hollows. The drive discs are put into the W engine like CDs into a player. Even more so, like a really cool hit clips. So back to the film. This machine is an oscilloscope, and it is showing what the FM envelope or the frequency modulation is visualized. This controls the audio and luminance of what we see and what is recorded. We know the hollows are sections that become distorted because of an error in the FM signal from the setup facilitating the simulation. Here's a graph to show how this should look. The information is in the amplitude of the carrier signal. When it becomes distorted, we hear it as the sound of hissing, bubbling, and crackling, and we see it in the form of a distortion in luminance. So it would create white holes or black holes. Here's the part that's going to blow your mind. I mentioned the beryllium crystals being the ether crystals in the first video about this theory. I did some zigging and I found that it was commonly used in the phosphors for the color CRT TV displays. We also know it was used to study dark matter, well, I guess it still is, for its large concentration of naturally occurring dark matter particles. We also know that magnets are used to study dark matter. But on this, we know that the laser is another way to study dark matter. Whatever it is, okay, we're all getting to the point. But it's the dark matter that's distorting the signal. We see a giant green beryllium crystal shooting out of the TV in random play. It cannot be a coincidence. What do you think the truth is? Is it the magnet that's clearing the magnetic tape so that it can be rewritten? Or do you think it is the blade to physically cut and manipulate the film? I'm torn, and I'm going to wait until we get more lore to make a definitive statement on this because we just don't have enough yet. All we know is it's something that is physically changing the tapes that the story is on. Soft confirmation that I'm not a time traveler, so hit that subscribe button so you can be notified when I do inevitably update this theory. Back to that time loop. Now, why would there be a loop in a normal story being told on tapes? The VCR is supposed to rewind when it gets to the end of the tape. We know that Belle starts as a clone of Sunbringer. She gets her power up with Fairy, like putting a VHS tape into the player. Now we see the 7th generation distortion in that prologue cutscene. We know that she moves forward in time until she finds the truth. Then the tape ends. When the tape ends, it will rewind. We get the symbolism for this twice. In the lore teaser, the 2 hollows collapse into each other, and in the prologue cutscene, they say in the end, it all comes down to this. Something must end. We don't know how it will happen, but we know it will. Belle and Wise go back in time, or they stay awake while the tapes are being rewound. Some stuff happens and they end up as Sunbringer and Joyous. They take the HDD and Eos to the past with them. They were never invented and they cannot be destroyed nor created. That is why Belle and Wise are the perfect vessels for the Hollows. Their existence is a paradox, carefully placed by the developers, and it implies one of these simulations of the story is currently a trial run for something in the real world of the story. You know what I mean? Like, outside the simulation, there is a horror happening that is even realer and even scarier than whatever is happening in the simulation. The one creating the crystal corruption on the TV. It could possibly be coming from the TV because they accessed the Internet Deep database and created that hollow, a ground zero for the real disaster. This implies that it was Belle and Wise the entire time. Carol Arna's actions really had nothing to do with the fall of the old capital. They cannot keep playing the same tape and hope to find a new ending. The answer has been there the whole time. Belle and Wise must sacrifice themselves to become the AI or sacrifice themselves to the timeline and enter the loop. The only thing with enough power to break the simulation would be collecting all 4 AI, their counterparts, and getting the gaze from the creator. The editor, the developer, the director's cut, whatever you want to call it, the tape needs to be physically manipulated. Fairy has that ability. She is shaped like the drum, and she has the 4 heads, which are used to read and write the magnetic tape. This also implies that the statement, "Together we'll make new Eridu," is the whole statement. They are creating the simulation of new Eridu, or moving it from the tapes to the HDD. I think they are trying to make it real. The heroic rescue of an entire civilization. It still rests on Phaethon's fall. In a world with no gods and no one to ferry them across the river, they're already gone. But that's great because the story's already happened. It's on the tapes already. It's on the tapes in the staff room before the story even starts. Why do they have to run this simulation 7 times though? That part does not make sense. I'm going to keep digging because we know what to look for. I have a sneaking suspicion it's going to be inspired by Tenet, but I'm not ready to do a deep dive on that just yet. This also brings up the point that there has to be a version of Belle in the story already moving backwards. This time loop does not work unless that version of Belle is seen. Have you noticed that Padme looks an awful lot like Belle, but with like the gold and orange eyes? She's also a musician, so her information on these tapes would be embedded deeper. We also know that she faces left, implying that she is moving against the flow of time. Please bear with me, I did not intend to write an Oops All Belle script, but that is where my analysis has left me. I see the storytelling and the foreshadowing about Padme as an implication that Belle will be awake during the rewind and that she is most likely using the music to make that magic happen. Similar to how ancient mages used chanting, singing, and sound to make their magic work. We also know that Belle is an exceptional singer, plays multiple instruments, loves 404 Error, and Wise has this photo of the tower Padme is on the album cover on his computer. It's subtle foreshadowing and it has a dual meaning. We know that he must climb the tower to get Jinny, but also it implies that Belle as Padme moving in reverse is most likely trying to get that to happen. That is why we hear about Padme and her band so cryptically. Anything more than bringing our attention to her existence is giving it all away. But we have a few pieces of crucial foreshadowing to really connect them. Belle has the 4-leaf clover on her notebook on her desk, the only part of her room that stays tidy and organized. This is also the band's logo. We know that Belle is hiding in plain sight. The hairstyle is definitely a clue worth discussing. Her buns are pointy, and the orange gold eyes are a giveaway. It would solve the eye mystery too. We know that Sunbringer is somewhere outside of the timeline, not affected by time in any way. So this could be telling us that the orange eyes are the reverse and the blue eyes are going forward. This version also means that when Belle meets this version of herself, most likely at 404 error while Padme is performing, it could cause a serious problem for the timeline. Or if it was always supposed to happen, nothing would change. So let me know what you think. This time loop definitely applies to the other AI, specifically Wise and Jinny, because we see evidence that Belle must start the rewind process for Wise to get Jinny. Now that we know how Fairy and friends function within this time loop, we can apply what we know to Archie and the HDD. If he is the Hive Lord, he must also be the creator outside of the simulation, never existing but always there. This is how Professor Archie could enter the story. Much like the urban legends, he is haunting New Eridu and Hollow Zero, all of it. I mean, let's be real, all of it. He's searching for the truth. That is why he got lost. Now, like an editor searches for the true story in the film, a cut has to be made somewhere. The truth is a blade that can turn back time. If that tape is broken, the tape on the VHS, it will start to rewind because the sensor will tell it that the film has ended. Okay. It's crazy. You can't even tell me it's not crazy how everything is coming together. Archie is also described as a black hole inside the hollow, something that shouldn't be possible. This is also the character watching from a black and white CRT TV. We see this in the unknown footage video for Section 6 and Virtual Revenge. Those TVs are not made with beryllium, they are not affected by magnets, and you can usually hear them actually running the film. In that video, we hear the film reels turning. What are they changing? What is Archie changing? Please, we can't even know yet. So, like I said, there's no point in making any further predictions beyond there is something suspicious there. And anytime we see something black and white and we hear the film reels turning, something is being changed. And when we compare everything, that is how we will get our answer. Now that we know that the black and white film is part of the mystery, we can figure out what is going on with the color film. What is it a reference to? We know Wise is shown with the color film in the opening cutscene, so it is probably how we will find the version of him moving backwards in time like Padme is for Belle. I think I found the character as well. Have you noticed that the person holding the camera for the news always seems to know where the real story is happening? They do it several times. First with the vision case, then again in Chapter 5. We even see it in Astronomical Moment. I think they know where to point the camera because they have already experienced everything. The name is a little on the nose. I think the devs have to be trolling us with this one. In the vision trial coverage, the camera is pointed towards the airship. The reporter is on the side. In Chapter 5, the reporter asks the person holding the camera if they know anything about the connection between the Hollow and the current election. They get nervous and their voice changes, so we don't really have a lot to go on with the voice comparison, but I do think they sound the same. Finally, in Astronomical Moment, Astra says that she is inspired by Yoronda Winter, and then he asks if it is a tribute concert, which it is, and she responds that that is a sneaky question and does not answer. It's all just a little too coincidental for it to not be intentional. We also know we have to look for a character with white hair, red eyes, and some kind of hat. I hope that they can reveal what this Kevin character looks like so we can figure it out for real. But now, the one mystery that I think can be solved, but I have not done the deep dive on it yet. Why are the lore teaser, the opening cutscene, and so many of the terrible things that happen to Belle and Wise all through the perspective of Eos? We know they use the name of one of the horses that pulls Apollo's chariot. I think that would be a ton of fun. Would you like a deep dive on that? Because it would explain the voice distortion in the lore teaser and why they sound so different, but also at the same time the same. Finally, I would like to know what you think. Am I bonkers or am I onto something? Sorry I had to wait so long to update this theory too. Like, this new endgame really confirmed a lot of things that I needed to have 100% sorted out to have the confidence to post this. It also reminds me of Amphorius and the Elysian Realm from the Honkai games. I understand it means the characters exist somewhere outside the simulation, especially with Zenless feeling like they're actors in a film. But that doesn't make it any less sad or stressful that we are in the middle of the bad ending. I don't want them to Himiko the whole cast. I have a feeling they will. So, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.